At the first CHYK camp that I ever spoke at, taught at, it was in the summer of 2009. And one of our chicks from England had come, and she was sharing a remark on the closing day of our retreat. And she shared a story that her nani, her grandmother, had shared with her, and she shared with all of us. I want to share that story with you. There was a young boy, an infant, who loved his mother very much. As he grew up, he was exploring his own body parts, his elbow, his ears. He was exploring his mother's body parts, her neck, her face. And he noticed that he has eyes, and she didn't. And it was left there. He grew up some more. He started going to elementary school. And his mother would walk him to school. And when he started going to school, seeing his peers, mothers, teachers, etc., he noticed everyone had eyes. But his mother didn't have eyes. So one day, when his mother was walking him to school, he said, "Mom, you stop here. You go home. I'll walk to school by myself." And she knew why he had said that. And her response was, "If this will make you happy, fine." And he went to school, and she went home. After elementary school, middle school, high school, a lot of group projects to go to people's homes. And he insisted that his group meet at their homes and never at his house. And if people were coming to his house, he would tell his mother beforehand that you stay in another room. I don't want my friends, I don't want my group to see how you look. This is her own home. And she said, if this is what you want, fine. After high school, college, he finishes college. He comes home one day, and that mother is feeling this commencement invitation. And he walks to her and takes it out of her hand and says, I don't want you to come to my commencement. I don't want all of those people to see who I came from. She said, if this is what you want, fine. He graduates, he gets a job, he gets married, he starts his own family, he has his own son. That mother is there one day, and she's playing with her grandson. So happy, grandson so happy. The grandson starts to cry. He's crying. The mother of that son takes that grandson from her mother-in-law and says, you're making our son cry. She said, I'm not doing anything. That the grandson's mother goes to her husband and says, your mother is scaring our son. Do something about it. She's frustrated, he's frustrated, and he says to his mother, we don't want you to come here anymore. You're scaring our grandson. You stay in your own home. That grandson could have been hungry, sleepy, who knows. But she said, if this is what you all want, fine. Some years pass now, and that son gets a phone call. It's an attorney. The attorney says, your mother has passed away. And before she passed away, she gave me a letter which I am going to give to you. So the son sadly drives to the attorney's office, meets the attorney gives him the envelope, and he opens it. And when he opens it, all it is a hospital certificate sharing that he was born without eyes, that his mother had donated her eyes when he was born. Now, as you hear this story, if you think deeply about the story, we may question, that son was really someone who took her for granted. Others may be thinking that mother should have taught him better. Right? When we think deeply, there's no conclusion to this expression. Is this love? Is this not love? Thinking deeply is the way to change one's perspective, the way to change one's life. This is why we have so many celebrations in North American culture. We have so many utsavas, as we call them in Sanskrit. Utsava means to lift up. Whenever a celebration comes, your birthday, an anniversary, an utsava, like Ram Navami, Guru Purnima, it's a time to think deeply. Where have I come from? How has the last year passed? Where do I want my next 5 years, 10 years to go? And this weekend is special. We have February 13th today. Friday, February 13th. That's an utsava for those who are gothic and vampires, right? Then tomorrow's Valentine's Day, also a celebration for those who are gothic and vampires. Then Monday, I believe, is President's Day in the United States. It's called Family Day in Canada. We keep everything non-political in Canada. Tuesday's Mahashivratri. So this whole retreat is surrounding celebrations, utsavas. And so what this retreat is encouraging us to do is think deeply about where you've come from, where you are, and where you want to go. Now, thinking deeply requires time, requires effort. And I heard somewhere that you can go a few minutes without air, a few days without water, a few weeks without food, and forever without thinking. You just don't need to do it. Now, if you begin to think deeply along the lines of Vedanta, along the lines of this chart, along the lines of what Swamiji teaches you, then your thinking will take you to what is a Jeeva? What is the Jagat? What is Ishwara? What is the Jeeva? Who is this individual? What is the Jagat? What is this universe? Who is Ishwara? Who is the creator of this individual and universe? Jeeva, Jagat, Ishwara. And as I continue to think, I will ask, what is the connection between these three? Are they separate? Are they interdependent? How do these go together? By thinking, a lot of the confusion in our life can be cleared out. There is a great master, his name is Ramana Maharishi. And I hesitate to say there was because the body is not present, but the presence is present. And most of the day, he would sit in a cot almost, with his head on his chin, looking with his eyes closed, or just looking into space, not at anything. And people from around the world would come to him with their confusions. Our Puja Swami Tapovanam went there. Our Puja Gurudev went there. And when people would come, they would say, I'm unhappy, don't know what to do, what program do I go to, this sorrow is happening, etc., etc. And occasionally he would open his eyes and look at them. Occasionally he would say, who are you? And then he would just go back to looking in space. Now if I did that, who are you? You'd be thinking, well, he's trying to buy time right now. I don't think he knows how to share thoughts on this. But when people heard, who are you? They followed that question, and everyone left with a great peace, with a lot of direction in their life. The next 3 evenings, we are going to explore love thyself, connecting to your true nature. And as I was sharing earlier, I'm happy to be in the company of a lot of friends. I've been coming to our center here for 7 years now. That's a long time to consistently come to a place, and I'm grateful for such opportunities. 3 evenings is not a lot of time to explore this subject, so I'm going to speak each evening for approximately 60 to 75 minutes. And the remaining minutes, we're going to have a question and reflection period. There's paper that you were given, there's paper in the middle of that aisle. When I'm done speaking, then some people will collect those questions, if you have any, and I will try to answer them. That way this becomes even more real. This is not just for me to think, it's for all of us to think. And please write your name on the question as well. And I'll tell you why. When we write our name on a question, we are honest with the problem we're facing or the curiosity we have. We have to own up to it as if. It's like taking off a mask. This is who I am. Otherwise, we say, my friend has this problem. Recently, I met some people and they're like, yeah, you know, my sister and her husband, they're having these challenges and they're going on and on about them. They're like, yeah, is it okay if me and my husband come meet you tomorrow morning? Why are you saying your sister has the challenges? You have the challenges. See, if we unmask ourselves, we'll be ready for the answer. But if the mask stays on, then the answer will come, but just get deflected. Okay. How many of you, by show of hands, use your GPS to come here tonight? By show of hands. Okay. GPS means Global Positioning System or Global Positioning Satellite. You can call it whatever you want. Taking it into a Vedantic context, as soon as you get into a car and you have your GPS, whether it's on a phone or an actual instrument, the first thing you put in is the destination, correct? And based on the destination, the GPS isolates your location. Okay. You further go into this experience of using a GPS, and you have faith that a lot of money and a lot of research has gone into these satellites or these positioning systems. You rarely question that GPS, other than if it's made by Apple. So a lot of faith. And what's something very unique about GPS is when you take a wrong turn, all it says is recalculating. It doesn't say you idiot. Pay attention to what I'm saying. Do you think you know more than me? It as if forgives you and says, no, no worries, I'll take you another place. And you don't do that, I'll take you another place. So destination, location, faith, forgiveness. Take this into the context of Vedanta. Take this into the context of love. The destination for love, we are going to explore through Puja Swami Chinmayananda's insights as conveyed through this small book called I Love You Letters. And based on knowing the destination, we will know our location. And just like with the GPS, which you paid for, this master has done everything in his life for us for free. And not even money. No reciprocity. Whether that means credit or praise, anything of the sort. So the same faith we have in GPS to try to direct this here, and the same forgiveness that a GPS offers to us, this will definitely offer us the same forgiveness, even if we don't follow this guidance, follow these instructions. The last 4 evenings, I was speaking at our Yamunotri Center on face everything and rise. Because usually our strategy is face everything and run. But let's stop running, face everything and rise. And we saw that with Neo in the Matrix as well. When he's beginning, his instruction is just run when you see those agents. As he evolved, I'm not going to run, I'm going to face them now. We studied the symptoms, source, solutions, and resolutions that go with facing fear. The symptoms of fear, failure. When I'm afraid to speak, when I'm afraid to write an exam, when I'm afraid of another person, I fail in those responsibilities. What is the source of all of this? My thoughts. If you have a fear thought, you have to be afraid. But if you have a quiet thought, how can you not be quiet? It's like they say, move your hand like this and turn your foot in a weird way. You can't do it at the same time, right? You can't be fearful and be meditative at the same time. It's not possible. And the solution to all of this is to develop virtues. Because fear comes where there are vices. Lord Krishna says, Vita raga bhaya krodha. If you're without attachment, then you will also be without fear, anger. And what virtue should we develop? To be a reflective person. That every experience I go through, I should ask myself, what did I learn from this experience? You get into a relationship, what can I learn from this experience? You get out of a relationship, what can I learn from this experience? You make money, what can I learn? You lose money, what can you learn? That's the virtue that will take us past fear. That is the virtue that will create everything we need in our lives. Specifically, I'm sharing this because many of you would have read this book already. By show of hands, how many of you have read I Love You letters? Many people. My further question is, how many of you have studied I Love You letters? It's quite different. How many of you have listened to Beethoven? How many of you have heard Beethoven? How many of you have listened to Beethoven? It's quite a different experience. Not that I know what that experience is. Like, oh yes, Vivek listens to Beethoven. I was just thinking, okay, think of a musician's name that makes you sound smart. Keep an open mind towards taking this up again. And now many people in this room have come to Bharat with me and our Chinmaya Inspiration Yatras. And my encouragement of them from day 1 to day 20 is keep an open mind. Keep an open mind towards studying Vishnu Sahasranama. Keep an open mind with eating on the train. Keep an open mind. We act, speak, and think so casually about love. We act so casually, like, I love Taylor Swift, right? Oh, I love skiing. I love the new iPhone. And we do. Look, the company has more money than some countries. But then you go and say you love your mother. You love your guru. So the iPhone 6 and the guru who saved your life are on the same plane. See how casually we act on this, how we speak about this, how we think it? The people you have told you love in your life, do you actually love them? The people who tell you that they love you, do they actually love you? And I'm not here to break up families. I'm trying to solidify, not to break up. We weren't always like this. And I brought an example of an infant. An infant loves thyself. They have no reason not to love themselves, but we grow up and stop loving ourselves. And I'll give you a personal example going back to 2008. When I was teaching at the Balavir camp at Yamunotri, then I got to know a family where they had 2 young girls. And we were spending time together after the camp, etc., etc. And one day they came to the host family where I was staying. We had a meal together. We played Monopoly or cards or something like that. And as they're about to sit in this car, this minivan, obviously, and they're sitting in the van, and I'm outside just saying goodbye. And they get back out of the van and come close to me, and both of the girls in unison say, "We think we love you." 2 young girls, okay? They must have been 8 years old or 9, I don't know. And they went back into the car. And as I reflect on that, It shows how strong those two young girls are. They're willing to say it, correct? And there's no reciprocity. I didn't have candy to give them. I wasn't marking their papers or anything like that. It was just a genuine expression. Do you have the courage to do the same? Do you ever feel that love? That's my point. We are taking this at a very superficial level, and we're going to change that. As thoughts on love thyself come, please do your Shravanam and Mananam concurrently. Shravanam, listening. Mananam, reflection. For those who cook, while you're cooking, what are you also doing? Eating. You shouldn't, but you are. All of the women are saying eating, all the men are saying cleaning. Typically, but now things are reversed, okay? I have to be very careful about everything I say. But isn't it, you can't just cook, you have to clean simultaneously. Otherwise, that cooking becomes chaotic. So while you're listening, reflect on it too. Make this message yours. Our Puja Gurudev wrote this 47 years ago. And you know when he wrote it? He went for a retreat to Uttarkashi. I'm going to take 1 year off. And as soon as he got there, he started writing these letters to his Balavyar students, to the Balavyar teachers, to the people. That's love. That though physically removed, it was never out of sight, out of mind. Here, all of you for the next 3 evenings are going to be strong in love. You will go home, you will think about it, you'll speak it, you'll act it, and on Monday, what is love? We'll listen to that Hathaway song, What is Love? Right? Out of sight, out of mind. You come to Badri, you turn your music off. I don't listen to the radio. I walk slowly. I keep my shoes straight. You leave Badri, right? You don't get your turn over there. You're honking. Make this your own. Gurudev shared his insights 47 years ago, and they're just as relevant. In fact, they're more relevant today. Where we are more confused about ourselves, we need to take this up more clearly. Love is the heart of Sanatana Dharma. All of us who like to say that we're Hindus or we want to learn about Sanatana Dharma, one word, love. So if we want to be practitioners, if we want to be students, we need to think about this. And my last point about introduction before I get into the subject. Gurudev has a small prasad pustika, a yajna book that is given after lectures, and it's called Think. Capital letters, Think, with an exclamation mark. Part 2 came out later on, and it was entitled, Think Again. So you can buy them if you want. I'm not just making this up. And how many times in his discourses, for those who have listened or saw him, he would just rub his hands and say, think. He'd stop and say, think. He'd pull his beard and say, longer the beard, more the suspicion. Call my bluff. He didn't want to be that person who gave something for you to eat or tapped you on the head or whispered something in your ear. This is yours. Hence, love thyself. How many of you get the e-vichara by show of hands? Okay. For my own confidence, I'm not going to ask you how many of you read the e-vichara. You getting it is good enough for me. Recently, I wrote about a vicious family tree. About how all of us have the same original parent. That is the creator, our maker, the divine. And then as if ignorance came after that. And so in Sanatana Dharma, the original sin, that which brings us away from our original parent, from our creator, is not women or wealth, as is stated in other religions, but it is ignorance. I have forgotten who my original parent is, And I start to believe that ignorance is my grandparent. And in this ignorance, I forget that if my parents are noble, then naturally I must have the same lineage. I should be noble too. But I forgot that. So I feel incomplete. I feel unhappy. I feel lost. I feel empty. And so the first child of incompleteness naturally is desire. When you're hungry, what do? You go and eat. When you feel empty inside, what do? You go on vacation. When we feel incomplete at a relationship level, at a love level, what we do is we feel alone. We feel lonely. Because I don't know that my nature is that love, that divinity, that nobility, I've forgotten that, so I always feel lonely. And we're around so many people, yet we still feel lonely. How many times we sit at a table with so many people, but we're thinking, are people paying attention to me? Do they like me? Do they want me to sit here? Should I sit with that person? Are they judging me? What is that other than a sign of loneliness? If someone is fine being there, why would those thoughts be there? So desire, presented in our context, is feeling lonely, and we do anything to avoid loneliness. Starting with, when we drove here, we turned the radio on. If you're sitting by yourself, you turn the radio on. Do you really need to listen to the news report all the time? I'll tell you it right now. This negativity happened here. More negativity happened over there. This person hurt that person. That person stole from that person. Done. But we turn that on. When we go home, what do we turn on first? Television. When we're with people, small talk. So, and then you're thinking, do you like stuff? Someone had told me, if someone talks to you about the weather, that means they don't like you. They have nothing else to talk to you about other than the weather. I know what the weather is. You don't need to tell me what the weather is. Right? Small talk. Try for the next 3 evenings, don't give in to small talk. Just be quiet. It'll be awkward initially. But soon it'll become comfortable. Everything is awkward initially. A new haircut is awkward initially. Then you get comfortable with it. For those who have a shikha, the first time was really awkward. And it's still awkward. So don't compromise on doing anything to avoid that loneliness. Do something proactive. Find a real solution to feeling empty, to feeling incomplete. Now take it to another perspective. When do you feel strong? When do you feel complete? When do you feel happy? When do you feel like you don't need anyone, anything, anywhere? We feel that when we're growing. When our bodies become stronger, we feel, I don't care if someone thinks I'm like this or like this. When my mind becomes stronger, if people are paying attention to me or not, I don't need to be the center of attention. When my intellect is growing stronger, out of sight or out of mind, stops applying. It's always insight. We feel stronger when we grow. In the context of I love you letters, this is called prema. Prema is when I grow up. When I direct myself to anything that is higher than me. Higher here means nobler, more inclusive. The swastika is a noble symbol in Sanatana Dharma, where there should be swasti. Swasti means goodness, health, prosperity. You see how the nationalist socialists, that is Adolf Hitler, took that symbol and took the word Aryan and took something that is so big and made it so small. In other words, instead of growing, he went smaller. He took nobility as being exclusive. Only this group of people in this country, everyone else is exclusive. They're lesser. But a real noble person, a real Brahmana, someone who's inclusive, doesn't think that only they're special, but everyone is special. You come too. You're special too. I like this about you. See how one word misinterpreted led to such destruction. Being an Aryan, being inclusive means to grow. It's not about me, it's about we. It's about us. And you just keep changing that word to be more and more and more inclusive. Prema is turning ability into capability. Now, if you went to dictionary.com and put those words in, they would come out as synonyms. Ability, fine. Capability, fine. But in philosophy, ability is our potential. Capability is how much we capture of that potential. Even if you take that word cap and add it to ability. So I have the potential to love myself, to love continuously, but how much of that do I actually release? And we see this with a lot of people. I love my family. I don't need to love my neighbor's family. And they're very proud of that. Some people come to me and say, I'm a good person. I do good things. Why should I come to the study group? Why should I study the scriptures? And then they fold their hands like this and look like that. Really, what you came here to is to debate with me. And my simple response is, if you want good happiness, keep doing what you're doing. But if you want extraordinary happiness, you need to put in extraordinary effort. So good is not good enough. So loving one's family is not good enough compared to your potential. If you don't love your family today, but you start loving them, good. But your potential is infinitely more. And keep remembering that infant. That infant will go into anyone's arms. When they're not cranky, they'll go into anyone's arms. There's no possessiveness there. Of you, of him, of her. They'll go to the girls' or boys' bathroom. It doesn't matter to them. They don't even possess their own body. That's our potential. This growth, as I mentioned, love is the heart of Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana Dharma is expressed through self-development. Again, connect those two letters. Sanatana Dharma, self-development. If you want to live Sanatana Dharma, then you have to focus on perpetual betterment. Who you are today, you have to be better tomorrow and better the day after. In the context of love, being more inclusive. But you must start with yourself. If you don't know how to be a friend to yourself, you cannot have friends. If you're confused, you cannot bring clarity into another relationship. This whole idea of two negatives make a positive, it doesn't work with people. There has to be some element of clarity, some element of confidence. You put two unconfident people together and what happens? I'm more unconfident. No, I'm more unconfident. You put a confident person with an unconfident person, they push them, hey, how come you're not confident? Okay, I'll be confident. That matching has to happen. Sanatana Dharma is expressed as self-development. Not yourself or that self, your present self. And for those who are new to Chinmaya mission, you can even put those two letters in there too. Self and Chinmaya are synonymous. Development and mission are also synonymous. What is Sanatana Dharma? It's Chinmaya mission. What's Chinmaya mission? Self-development. Think about the first time you walked into this room. and now walking into this room, are you the same person? Already 45 minutes have passed. Are you the same person in the past 45 minutes? Yes. We are. When we talk about growth, when we talk about self-development, it requires an investment. If you want to grow your stock portfolio, don't you have to invest more money? If you want your child to learn about piano and Bharatanatyam and Sanskrit, don't you have to invest more time driving them around or finding a teacher or helping them with their studies? It requires an investment. Every person in this room can only invest in 3 ways. What can you give to yourself? What can you give to anyone else? Resources, time, and effort. You can give your resources. Let's take a noble cause that's happening across the street. What can you give them? You give them a donation. It's physical. It's easy. What can you give them? Your time. You give them for 6 hours a week. It's mental. It's more difficult. You give them your effort. You intellectually try to align with their vision, their cause. What else can you give them? It all comes down to these 3 categories. Clothes or marketing or sponsorship or bringing another person in. It just comes down to these 3. Resources, time, and effort. When these resources, time, and effort are directed inside to ourselves, it's prema. And as you keep investing in yourself, that growth keeps growing. I go from myself to my family, from my family to the neighbor's family, from the neighbor's family to the community. And you keep growing like that. And when you get to the top, when one's resources, time, and effort are directed towards the creator, the original parent, it's not called prema anymore. It's called bhakti. It's called devotion. A new dimension of ourselves is released. You know, like in video games when you go into a warp zone and then you're in this new dimension. It's like that. It's just your capabilities. When Mario gets that star, he's in a new dimension of capability. He can run through flowers and mushrooms and pots and clouds and all of that, right? You know where video games took all of this from? Here is like grandparents always say, oh, it all came back from here. It all started from here. But it's true. Yatihi or yatin means the one who's trying to be better. Yatin turned into Jatin. Jatin turned into Justin. See this? See the totally consistent connection back to Yatihi. When Hanumanji is serving Sugriva, okay? Sugriva's potential, so Hanumanji is investing his resources, time, and effort only to the same level. But all of a sudden, Lord Rama comes onto the scene. And now you can't even measure his potential. So what happens to his investment and his potential? Goes to the same place. Mirabai. When she's investing in her husband as compared to Lord Krishna as her husband, how can those even be shared on the same platform or the same sentence? She was given a cobra, and when it came onto her, what did it turn into? A garland. I literally am telling you, the dimensions change. But we have to work our way up there. So that's prema. Prema is growth. Remember those 2 words. That is loving. Loving is investing resources, time, and effort into anything that helps me to grow. And to give you it at a simple level, all of the people in your life, do they help you grow? She's laughing. The people I traveled with, they don't help me grow. The people sitting behind me. And family, okay, let's not touch that, that right now. But take up friends. Friends is something we choose. Do your friends help you to grow? Do they make you more inclusive? Sometimes in our Balivara classes, especially as they get older, you have the majority males or females, but it tends to be majority females. And then when a new female comes into the class 2 months later, those group of 6 or 7 girls don't let that other girl come into the group. Teachers have brought this to my attention. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with high school gossip and high school cliques. What am I supposed to do about this? But I just do something. You can't allow this to happen. Right? See, this idea of, are these girls helping each other grow? They're not. Throw a boy in there to mix everything up. The opposite of prema is sneha. Sneha is where my resources, time, and effort, also known as love, is directed into something lower. It does not help me grow. When I surround myself by people who always make me feel less about myself, that's sneha. I feel a lot of us have succumbed to that. We think, I was sharing this, kabhi khushi, kabhi gum. Right? Sometimes happiness, sometimes sorrow. Chalta hai. All Hindi movies, right? You can just keep firing off sayings and they become movies. But truly, that's what we believe. That, oh, it's okay for me to sometimes believe that I can do it, and okay sometimes for me to believe I can't do it. Who said that? If you met Swami Chinmayananda and you said that, he'd just look at you and keep looking at you till you would say, okay, I got it. I know what I need to change. What Gurudev says in the book is that many of us grow from the womb of our mother's, from our mother's womb to the womb of the world, but there's really never any growth. We just go from a small womb to a big womb. But we always remain that undeveloped entity in this context. And a lot of us are like that. In sneha, if I can use one word to remember this, is dependence. If prema is growth, sneha is dependence. We do anything to not be lonely, and that creates dependence. And Swamiji, Gurudev uses some very strong words that I can't pronounce, but I'll try. He says, the sadistic person is someone who enslaves others so that they're not lonely. Don't take it only in a sexual way. This is actually much worse because it relates to all the time. The sadistic person enslaves others, humiliates them, makes fun of them, makes them feel small. Don't bullies like having people around that make them feel good? Sadistic. And the opposite, or the pseudo-opposite, is someone who practices masochism. I'll pretend like that's how you pronounce it. Someone who likes being enslaved. Someone who likes being humiliated, hurt, insulted, bullied, made small, because they don't want to be alone either. They don't want to be lonely. And they've done full-out studies on these experiences. I listened to a report on NPR that said, when a supervisor comes into an office and criticizes an employee, they measured their morale. And then they compared it to a supervisor coming into an office and ignoring an employee. The person who gets criticized, their morale is higher than the person who is ignored. Shocking. But you're all thinking, yeah, how did NPR know? This is that sense of, I forget my nature. So I feel incomplete, so I feel lonely, and I become dependent. For everyone in a relationship, weren't you happy before the relationship? And then so many times in that relationship we think, what will happen if this person dies? What will happen if this person leaves? The simple response is you go back to the state you were in before. You were happy before. You can be happy again. But to think that you can't be happy again, growth hasn't taken place. Dependence has taken place. When asking parents about what bothers them, what's their response? Their children. What about their children? What if they don't get married? And that's it, just that statement. They just keep looking. And what if they don't get married? Yes, I know, that's a question, that's an answer. And the response is, but then they'll be lonely their whole life. You're there, aren't you? The siblings are there, friends are there. People take it that way. Or the question is, what if they do get married? See, all the people sitting in the front rows are luckier than the people sitting in the back rows. For this reason, you're luckier because you get to sit on the chair. They're luckier because if they're not in a serious relationship yet, they are learning that they should be detached in that relationship. They should be independent in that relationship. None of you were taught that, correct? You were taught the more you cry when your child is not well, that means you care more. That your significant other shouldn't be long distance. They should always be beside you all the time. And now look at the challenges that come with any sort of relationship, but specifically family. But if we knew we had to be independent because that's real love, it would be like us covering our hands in oil before cutting that jackfruit. Right? You don't get that. That's why I'm all looking at all of you. I don't know, playing with Play-Doh and stuff, and you put cream on your hand. Just go with it. Make up your own example in your mind. This enslavement is happening. And we fight it at a formal level, but if you are happy being a slave, it can exist outside. But if you're not happy being a slave, it can never exist outside. Guruji always shares, a happy slave is the worst enemy to freedom. If I'm happy being like this, happy, I'll never change. Love is growth, and that's why Gurudev says, you rise in love, called prema. Falling in love is called sneha. Rising, prema, growth. Falling, sneha, shrinking, becoming smaller. So the focus for today on love was growth, but tomorrow I'm going to change the definition of love. And Sunday I'm going to change it again. That way you have to keep coming every evening. But really, today I've taken love at the most simple level. Tomorrow it will evolve. You should know that. The day after it will evolve even more. You should naturally know that too. Love is growth. Now that we've studied this word, we have to study thyself. Who are you? When was the last time you asked yourself, who are you? You mean you don't go at home to the mirror and say, who are you? But when someone does ask, who are you? Automatically our minds go to applications. Job applications, hospital applications, school applications. Section 1, tell us about your B. B here, body, okay? So your weight, your height, your eye color, your hair color, your blood type, etc., etc. Section 2, tell us about your M. Where did you go to school? What did you study? What book would you take on an island if you can only take one book? Stuff like that. Next, tell us about your I. Who did you vote for? Who is your favorite superhero? What would you change about the world? And we just keep going, BMI, 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 BMI. So if I asked you who you are today, you would just tell me you're BMI. But Lord Krishna feels otherwise. Lord Krishna tells Prince Arjuna that he is the Atman. What does Atman mean? It actually changes too. Atman does not mean the same in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Sometimes Atman means this. Other times Atman means ego. Other times Atman is mind. Other times Atman is body. You cannot say Atman means the same in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. It keeps changing. The literal meaning is that which is innermost. Sometimes we feel we're this close to enlightenment. If someone asks me who I am, Brahman. Brahman or bust. That's it. Other times, when you're really tired and cranky, you just want to eat junk food. Right? And what Brahman? Only body. This became very evident to me. I was in one place and I did 2 back-to-back discourses. And I came back to the home I was staying at. And it was late. I was physically tired, mentally tired. And Sheila opened the door for me. And as soon as I saw her, I said, I'm finishing that chocolate cake in the fridge. And she literally held my hands. You don't need it. You're just going to sleep. You know, you're going to regret this later. I said, no, I'm going to eat this chocolate cake right now. And it was divine for 5 minutes. But then I thought, what did I do? You have to work out for an hour for these 5 minutes. Before discourse, Brahman. After discourse, body. So we just keep going back and forth through these different ideas of who we are. So playing on that, what does it mean to love? Body, mind, ego, spirit. Let's start with the body. And I hope you're tuning in too. The message today has been presented at an absolute level, was taken at a relative level, and is now being taken to a tactile level. You touch that message wherever you want to touch it, but make sure you keep climbing. So now we're going to a tactile level. What does it mean to love the body? The gauge of love, the gauge of you loving your body is making your body more efficient. How do you gauge efficiency at a body level? How quickly do you digest food? How quickly do you fall asleep? How quickly do you wake up? What is the quality of your sleep? What's your blood pressure like? What's your blood sugar level like? Etc., etc. How efficient is this body? You ran the half marathon in 2 hours and 10 minutes. Can you run it in 2 hours? And if you can, aren't you more efficient? Aren't you processing that energy in a more efficient way? Invest resources, time, and effort into your body. How? Sweat out the sugar. Sweat every day. Because the more you sweat, the less you'll want sugar. Think, when you exercise and you feel good about yourself, do you want to eat junk food? You don't. You go to the salad first. Days you don't exercise, salad always comes last. This is our common experience. We don't want to waste those efforts. So what does it mean, love thyself? Well, today I believe I'm the body. So what does it mean to love my body? I'm going to make it more efficient. How? I'm going to sweat. And I don't mean hot yoga. I don't mean saunas. Because I do yogasana. What do? I do shavasana. I go straight to shavasana. You know? I'm at an advanced level. Sweat. How much money we spend on eating, and then how much more money we have to spend on exercising. Today I was watching a Weight Watchers commercial, and those meals are not cheap. I was just watching. So back in the day, in our Vedic culture, in Indian culture, they didn't have gyms. And I also believe they didn't have overeating. I also believe that, I read somewhere, back in the day when cave people were around, they consumed, I think, 7 grams of sugar like in a month or a year. What difference does it make? We consume that much in a drink, right? Sweat out that sugar. Sweat every day, resist that sugar. Then it'll show your love for the body. And don't we see people who hate their body? And how do they hate their body? They eat too much or they eat too little. Change that. Fine. Sometimes I feel myself is a body. Sometimes I feel myself is the mind. What does it mean to love the mind? When one becomes more accepting. The more accepting you are, the more you love the mind. You invest resources, time, and effort into your mind to make it more accepting. And I see this so strongly with our Puja Guruji, Swami Chinmayananda. He taught us, we were the 4th batch of students that he taught in the Vedanta course. Swamiji's was the 3rd batch that he taught, our Swami Chinmayananda. And I'm told that with each batch, Guruji became more loving, more sweet, more compassionate, more accepting. And I'm in no position to share anyone's evolution, let alone Guruji's. But if numerous people who have known him while he was a student are sharing that, some really senior devotees in Mumbai, then perhaps that shows someone investing in their mind becomes more accepting. Those people who have a lot of experience with work, the first time someone betrays you, steals from you, you have a year in the red. That first year is a major shock. But then it happens in your 4th year, and 12th year, and 20th year, and you stop being shocked by it. This is the nature of business. It just happens like that. You just become more accepting of that. Weather-wise too. Suppose some of our grandparents came from Chennai to Chicago for the first time. Who knows why, but suppose they came the first time. Tomorrow, when it's supposed to be minus 20 Fahrenheit. And in India, it's 100, so 120 degrees difference. That first time is an intense shock for them. But if they come every winter, it's still a shock, but not as much of a shock. They become more accepting. How to make the mind more accepting, how to make the mind more loving? Read non-fiction literature. I feel so many of us are lost in fiction, books, fiction magazines, fiction. That's just another way to escape from whatever our responsibilities are. And so I'm not saying you should only read history novels or war novels or anything, but why not read something about self-development? Something inspirational. Read about My Experiment with Truth by Mahatma Gandhi. Read Autobiography of a Yogi. This is how the mind becomes more accepting, when we see how other people grew in their acceptance. I did a talk a few months ago on how to raise teenagers in one of our satellite centers. Usually, for that center, 30 adults come. For that talk, 150 adults came. We had to order food to feed them all because the questions kept on going and the session was going on. And I was observing how our team got everyone to come. So they had a comic strip in their marketing material. And there was a lady at a library, and she was talking to the librarian saying, "Where are your books on how to raise a teen? I've checked self-help, family, motivation," and she's listing these. And then the librarian, imagine with their glasses like this, is looking straight ahead and said, check the horror section. Read books that will encourage us to be more accepting. Read, right? We don't even read anymore. Read in a paper book. There's a store right there you can buy them from. Read this book. You're given it for free. So body, efficiency. Mind, acceptance. Sometimes I believe I'm the ego. I'm always thinking I'm the doer. I'm always feeling I'm separate from people. What does it mean to love the ego? And that's a very un-Vedantic thought to think, why should you love the ego? Right now, my ego is crystallized over here. But imagine I grew my ego to include you as well, and you, and all of you. So when I say grow the ego, it makes it weaker, not stronger. You grow the body. I'm not just talking about dimensions. That's why I said efficiency. Hear me again. Efficiency. When the mind, acceptance, ego is humility. The person who is loving their ego is growing in humility. The ego is always thinking, speaking, acting that I did it, which is the exact opposite of humility. Guruji was asked, what is the characteristic of a religious-minded person? What is the defining characteristic? And his response was humility. They know that there's a power that is flowing through them. Whenever they have thank yous at the end, we're always waiting. I think they should say me because I did this. Or they should recognize me. Or they recognize a whole group, and even though you're not part of that group, you feel good. Yeah, I'm part of that group too. We're always looking for my part in doing this. And so how to invest resources, time, and effort into loving the ego? Do nothing. For a little bit of time tomorrow, just do nothing. Just sit or stand. Don't write, don't read, don't talk, don't think. Do nothing and watch. And when we watch, we'll see that the whole world is still going on without us. Probably better. Try it. Right? We can't sit still. I have to move the chair from here to here. I have to move the car from this spot to this spot. I have to say this to this person. Right? It's contributing. Now I feel good. I did something. Sheila says I do that all the time. Like I'll just move the dish from one sink to another sink, and I'll go sit down. You didn't do anything. Stop pretending like you contributed to this kitchen. Just do nothing. See how difficult it is. But the more we observe, the more our ego will grow and say that I didn't do it. We did it. And it keeps growing like that. Finally, sometimes I don't think I'm the body or the mind or the ego, but I think I'm the spirit. When someone says, who are you? You say, the spirit, Atman. The Atman that we know. How does one know if they're loving the Atman? By being independent. See, all of this stuff depends on that. That doesn't depend on anything. By making oneself independent, that is me expressing my love to the Spirit. That is me growing the Spirit. Please do not take this literally. Don't go and tell Swami Vivek, you said the Spirit grows. It's infinite. How are we going to grow the infinite? But if you take the implied meaning to this, the Spirit is independent. Let us not depend on other people's praise. Let us not depend on comfort. Let us not depend on circumstance for me to be a better person. We're always waiting, okay, on my birthday, I'm going to start going to the gym. Mahashivratri, that is the day that I'm going to be disciplined with eating. And so you fast for the first 12 hours and then get so hungry that you eat what you're not supposed to. Then you give up next Mahashivratri. Independence. And the way to implement this, hug yourself. Hug yourself. When you hug someone, you're always hugging an element of them that you appreciate. Without the spirit residing or enlivening this ego or mind or body, there would be nothing. We wouldn't even know that there's nothing. Appreciate yourself. I mean it. Like tomorrow, hug yourself as much as you can in different positions like this too. Like we do. You hug kids like this. Sometimes you have that awkward side hug like this, right? Do all of them, but with yourself. I had read somewhere. Imagine someone you cared for, whom you've invested so much into. They're given a special place, a special reward, and they recognize everyone but you. How would you feel in such a place? You'd feel quite small, hurt. Now, extrapolating that to Bhagavan, hasn't the Creator done everything for us? When was the last time we just said, God, thanks? Mother, father, right on. I appreciate me being alive right now. We thank people for opening the door. We put our flashers on for someone who lets us into a lane. Right? We go out of our way to express appreciation for these small matters, which we should. But when it comes to life, hug yourself. If we do not invest ourselves into growing the body, mind, ego, spirit, we will not grow, we will not love thyself. Tomorrow, we will take this to a new level. We'll take this message and we'll prop it up. We'll make it subtler. We'll make it more evolved. But you have to catch this to be able to catch tomorrow's message. So to help you do this, I have to give you your RAD. A RAD is a reflection adventure of the day. Until tomorrow, until 7:30 p.m. tomorrow, you need to reflect on this. And one's day will become way more adventurous then. What I mean by that is way more meaningful. Your RAD is count how many times you use the word I. Count how many times you use the word I verbally or in print. So keep a piece of paper with you. I'll show you in case you don't know what a paper looks like anymore. So just a piece of paper like this, okay? And I'm showing you because one of the RADs that I had given in another center was count how many times you laugh in a day. The typical child laughs 300 times a day. If you've ever seen a 3-year-old trying to sleep, like have those cameras that are really freaky because it's at night and the colors are way off. But you see, they're just laughing, telling jokes to themselves, playing by themselves. And it's my problem that I'm frightened by that. I shouldn't. She should be looking at me and saying, why are you so serious? Because we stay at someone's house every month and they have a 3-year-old, and we look at this camera and I admire this 3-year-old and how she's totally independent in the right ways. Totally independent. So the average child laughs 300 times a day. The average adult laughs 15 times a day. 1/20. And here we are proclaiming how civilized we are. Who cares about going to Mars? Learn how to laugh. Right? What are our priorities? So count how many times you use the word I.